disappeared, and everything froze all over again, building a glaze on the snow so thick at night it could hold the weight of a full-grown man. Each morning I threw salt from the bucket by the front door, down the narrow path from the porch to the street. Icicles hung from the rafter over the front door, and I stood there imagining them cracking and darting through my breasts, slicing through the thick gristle of my shoulder like bullets, or cleaving my brain into pieces. The sidewalk had been shoveled by the next-door neighbors, a family my father distrusted because they were Lutheran and he was Catholic. But he distrusted everyone. He was fearful and crazy, the way old drunks get. Those Lutheran neighbors had left a white wicker basket of cellophane-wrapped waxed apples, a box of chocolates, and a bottle of sherry by the front door for Christmas. I remember the card read, "Bless you both." Who really knew what happened inside the house while I was at work? It was a 3-story colonial of brown wood and flaking red trim. I imagine my father sucking down that sherry in the spirit of Christmas, lighting an old cigar on the stove. That's a funny picture. Generally, he drank gin, beer occasionally. He was a drunk, as I said. He was simple in that way. When something was the matter, he was easy to distract and soothe. I'd just hand him a bottle and leave the room. Of course, his drinking put a strain on me as a young person. It made me very tense and edgy. That happens when one lives with an alcoholic. My story, in this sense, is not unique. I've lived with many alcoholic men over the years, and each has taught me that it is useless to worry, fruitless to ask why, suicide to try to help them. They are who they are, for better and worse. Now I live alone. Happily. Gleefully, even. I'm too old to concern myself with other people's affairs, and I no longer waste my time thinking ahead into the future, worrying about things that haven't happened yet. But I worried all the time when I was young, not least of all about my future, and mostly with respect to my father. How long he had left to live, what he might do, what I would find when I got home from work each evening. Ours wasn't a very nice home. After my mother died, we never sorted or put her things away, never rearranged anything. And without her to clean it, the house was dirty and dusty, and full of useless decorations, and crowded with things everywhere. And yet it felt completely empty. It was like an abandoned home, its owners having fled one night like Jews or gypsies. We didn't use the den, or the dining room, or the upstairs bedrooms much. Everything just sat there collecting dust. A magazine splayed over the arm of the couch for years, candy dish full of dead ants. I remember it like those photos of homes in the desert, ravaged by nuclear testing. I think you can imagine the details for yourself. I slept in the attic, on a cot purchased by my father for some summer camping trip he never took a decade earlier. The attic was unfinished, a cold and dusty place I'd retreated to when my mother had gotten sick. Sleep in my childhood bedroom, which was next to hers, had been impossible. She had wailed and cried and called my name throughout the night. The attic was quiet. Not much noise traveled up there from the lower floors of the house. My father had an armchair that he'd dragged from the den into the kitchen. He slept there. It was the kind of chair that shuttled backward at the pull of a lever, a charming novelty when he'd bought it, but the lever no longer worked. The thing had rusted into permanent repose. Everything in the house was like that chair, grimy, ruined, and frozen. I remember it pleased me that the sun set so early that winter. Under the cover of darkness, I was somewhat comforted. My father, however, was scared of the dark. That may sound like an endearing peculiarity, but it wasn't. At night, he would light the stove and the oven and drink and watch the blue flames whirl.